Let's take a look at some information and charts on Ethereum for BraveNewCoin. Ethereum is currently a proof of work network, looking to switch to proof of stake over the next 6 months to a year. Not really sure on the exact timetable on those plans or dev calls and what have you, but it is an eventuality and will happen. But currently, while it's still proof of work, block times are rising slightly, but still much quicker than BTC. I mentioned this in the BTC video, but it comes down to how many confirmations do you feel comfortable with? For Ethereum, my issue with Bitcoin is never I'm questioning the transactions getting approved or denied. For Ethereum, I often have transactions that just don't go through for whatever reason, and I have to eat those fees. So there's a bit of a yin and yang, give and take, as far as, yes, we have very fast transactions on ETH, but we do more complex stuff with those transactions, and those transactions have a tendency, at least for me, to fail on occasion, meaning that I have to do that transaction over again anyway. So it's kind of more of a headache than dealing with BTC from that perspective. But block times are quite fast. If you look at hash rate on ETH, hash rate did decline a bit in May, June, kind of with price, with China stuff. But ever since then, I don't see anybody talking about ETH hash rate, and I don't know why, because it is just continuously pushing all-time highs. Maybe people just don't care. ETH, the whole thing about ETH, the narrative is DeFi, 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 NFTs, all this exciting stuff we can do, EIP 1559, we're moving to proof of stake. I get it, but this is insane. This hash rate is insane. The reason hash rate is insane is because miner revenue is insane. Miner revenue is still, per day, above 50 million. Still. That's after EIP 1559, after ultrasound money narrative, whatever you want to call it. Fees as a percentage of miner reward have come down, clearly. But total miner reward is still historically basically at all-time highs if you remove the high fee stuff in May. So miners are fat and happy, and if miners are fat and happy, they're going to continue to add hash rate to the network, even though they know that they will be bricked eventually. They will have to go somewhere else because this will switch to proof of stake, and there will be no proof of work on ETH eventually. And even though miners know this, mining manufacturers know this, they're still releasing ASICs for this specific algorithm. Now, even when ETH goes proof of stake, these can be mined on Ethereum Classic, so it's not like they won't have anywhere to go, but their mining profitability will be diminished significantly while mining ETC. So you just got to hope if you're buying these ASICs that you have enough time to recoup ROI at least, right? Before ETH goes proof of stake. The good thing for these guys is that ETH has a history of dragging their feet on any development stuff, and it's unlikely that the proof of stake stuff is coming anytime soon, which honestly I'm okay with. Just drag it out, make sure it's secure and good and doesn't collapse the entire network. ETH transaction counts in the line graph here had declined significantly when fees increased rapidly, but transactions are slowly coming back, even though fees are still insanely high relative to where they were before 2021. Average transaction values kind of waxing and waning with fees, most likely. No real signal there. But we need transaction counts to pick up. We need active addresses in the fill here to pick up. Currently, they're kind of just flat, not unexciting. We need fees to come down so transactions and active addresses can come up. And we don't have these other layer ones soaking up all this activity that ETH should be the king at. For competition's sake, it's great that there's options for people like BSC or Avalanche, bridging, Ren, whatever. That's great. But if you're bullish ETH, you want ETH to be the best place in town to go for all that stuff, all that activity. Currently, that's not the case for a lot of people because transaction fees are still incredibly high. NVT had been at all-time lows. NVT is an inverse metric of economic utility. Currently, kind of just sitting flat. No real signal there for me. But you do want to see that declining if you're bullish. MVRV relative to price. MVRV is another measure of economic utility compared to on-chain activity, or compared to market cap rather. And in BTC, in ETH's case, it has kind of topped out around 2. For BTC, it's gone 4, 5, 6 at times, but for the most part, ETH is kind of tame at around the 2x multiple. Currently it's at 1.7, which is a bit concerning if you're mega hyper bullish on ETH like I am, and you think this is going to 10K. Where's MVRV going to go? In order for MVRV to stay below 2 with price past 6K, you need a significant amount of on-chain activity to make up the difference there. Otherwise, MVRV is going to hit 5, 6. It's going to be insane. So we need on-chain activity back on ETH. The good news is that if we look at TVL across all the DeFi stuff, it's at all-time highs, just surging past all-time highs, which is good. The downside of this is on ETH, it's maybe surging slower, but it's, you know, it's still rising, right? Like you can't deny that. I'm not gonna discount the strength here. Some of this is based on the underlying value of ETH or the tokens or whatever. Some of this is multi-chain, right? So it's hard to know exactly what's going on here, but in general, TVL rising should be bullish. It's not going to move the needle by itself, but much like on-chain activity, it says people are using it, speculating, gambling, whatever, right? People are finding a use case for the world's supercomputer. Since the EIP 1559, there's been a 56% net reduction in emissions. And it's interesting, you couldn't really tell that on the chart. You know, ETH has been kind of flat. It's been ranging, but it's definitely been flat for a long time now. So maybe EIP 1559, the effects will kick in. These emission reductions don't ever kick in, even Bitcoin halving, right? That doesn't kick in until months later. So we may finally see the emission reduction kick in as supply is diminished and demand picks up here in Q4 in order to get us to that 6K, 10K target. Looking at ETH, Google Trends flat down, which is fine. Pre-breakout, you want to see Google Trends just quiet. You don't want to see mass euphoria in Google Trends before price gets there. If price is at 6 to 10K and Google Trends are back at all-time highs, then yeah, then I get worried that this is topped out for now and needs some time. Flipping gears to technicals, honestly, they're pretty clean. They're pretty straightforward. I don't really have too much to say other than this is why I think it's going to 10K based on the 1-year MA multiplier. The green is the buy, red is the sell. Occasionally, some coins cruise past the sell zone or cruise below the buy zone. But the target here is obvious. It's 10K. Since 2017, it hasn't cruised past that multiplier. So I don't know if we're going to get much more beyond that, but this will continue to move up slowly over time as we get to that level. So that number is going to change, but as we sit here, it's 10K. If we get through the midline, which is the white here, the confidence in that target increases exponentially. Very rarely across anything do we ever cross the midline without attempting a touch at the multiplier. So that's probably 6K. Again, another target that I see on Fibs as well. So 6K is the next stop, and then after that, it's 10 plus. If things don't collapse, if things stay as bullish as they are, it's on the right side of the EMAs. If you're bullish, it's above the 50, it's above the 200, it's above all the volume stuff. Its volume is actually flat here, which I think is great. We're not seeing crazy volumes. We're not seeing euphoria in any way, shape, or form. If you're a chart pattern person, this is potentially a cup and handle. RSI, not quite yet overbought. No bear divs here. Low time frame, inverted head and shoulders as well here. So there's a lot of reasons to be bullish. I don't really see any reason to be bearish here at all. I don't see anything. If I'm doing pro con for bull bear, I don't see anything bearish. If you measure fibs from high to low, you get that 6K level. 56 to 65, 666 would be an interesting level to hit, but I think that's where we're going. If we break all-time highs, that's where we're going. And then we're probably going to consolidate and figure out whether or not we're going to go to 10, but I definitely like 10 if we hit 6. And I see nothing bearish about this at all. The cloud loves it as well. It's above the cloud. It's getting ready for a bullish TK recross above the cloud, which even for ETH is incredibly rare. This happens almost never. It's maybe happened 4 or 5 times. I didn't actually check, but this doesn't happen ever. Okay, this is massive bullish continuation potential. The rocket is fueled and ready for liftoff on ETH. You can see that inverted head and shoulders, maybe a little better here, but this thing looks excellent. I like Moon for sure. ETH-BTC on the other hand looks flat sideways. Some would argue bullish. You could argue a flag here. You could also argue Adam and Eve. it's trend-wise is bullish. If it does break up, it's going to 0.1, definitely. But I'm not bullish on ETH-BTC here. I think it needs more time to decide what it is. It's neutral to me more than anything at 06, 05, 07. And based on seasonality, ETH-BTC has never been bullish in Q4, ever. Never is a strong word, but it's never been bullish. It's never outperformed BTC. The best it's ever done is 2018 on par with BTC. So to expect this to have some explosive move without BTC is unlikely. Obviously, not saying it can't happen, but it's never happened. So until it happens, you can't say, yeah, it'll happen. So ETH looking rather bullish. Pretty straightforward on the analysis, honestly. It's hard to be bearish on ETH. Aside from my own personal positioning, I mean, it's just, there's nothing to see that's bearish about anything. Everything's just mooning up and to the right. Last, I'll just mention the ETH-BTC fund and DeFi portfolio. I trade for Techme Capital Lines. I'm not finance, a non-custodial portfolio management tool where you can send ETH or USDC or just watch what I'm doing. You can see everything, including AUM performance, allocation, and the trades I make in the trades tab down below. That's all I have for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.